There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic.
The entertainment scene just got turned upside down. Disney has dropped a massive shocker. They're pulling the plug on all upcoming live-action remakes. This announcement comes hot on the heels of what insiders are now calling the Snow White disaster. The backlash hit hard and started long before the film ever made it to cinemas. But when those early reactions leaked, it blew up everywhere. Disney has been cashing in on their beloved classics for years, but it seems like they've finally reached their breaking point. Rumors had been swirling that the Snow White remake was in serious trouble, but no one could have predicted the level of chaos that followed. Fans were already skeptical, and things only got worse when a viral rumor claimed Rachel Zegler was briefly detained after allegedly lashing out at film critics. That rumor spread like wildfire. To make matters worse, devoted fans were furious about how the film twisted the original storyline beyond recognition. What should have been a magical reimagining quickly morphed into a full-blown PR catastrophe. People weren't just irritated, they were downright outraged. The Snow White controversy escalated rapidly, especially once feedback from early test screenings started to surface. Audiences complained about bizarre pacing, an inconsistent tone, and a storyline that felt more like a sermon than a fairy tale. Online critics didn't hold back either, slamming the movie for being preachy and straying far from the Disney charm fans expected.
Jonah Platt, whose father helped produce the latest Snow White film, had some very harsh words for star Rachel Zegler.
For context, Variety wrote a report recently titled "Inside Disney's Snow White Fiasco: Death Threats, Beefed Up Security, and a Social Media Guru for Rachel Zegler."
So even though woke in some sense feels like it's dead, it still has to run its course through the system. The ghosts have to get out of the machine in essence.
"This isn't the Disney I grew up with," read one comment. And that was one of the tamer reactions. Even Bob Iger and Rachel Zegler stepped in, urging fans to keep an open mind. But by then, the damage had already been done. Even the most loyal Disney fans, who usually flock to every remake, began to turn away. That shift was the warning sign Disney couldn't ignore. What once seemed unthinkable has now become reality. Disney is stepping back from its remake strategy. According to insiders, the Snow White fiasco sent shockwaves through the higher ranks. Behind the scenes, executives were reportedly in full panic mode as early screening feedback rolled in. And it wasn't pretty. Critics ripped into the sloppy editing, confusing story jumps, and themes that seemed to bulldoze over the magic of the original tale. Every new complaint only made the situation worse, and every attempt to defend the film ended up pouring more fuel on the fire. Cornered and under pressure, Disney is treating Snow White as a painful wake-up call. They've shifted into full crisis mode, unwilling to take any more risks that could damage their brand long-term. The decision is now official. There will be no more live-action remakes of their beloved animated classics. That's right, the era of Disney's reimaginings is officially over. What started as quiet concern has now erupted into a major internal policy change. Insiders are calling this a historic moment, something Disney has never done before. For years, remakes like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King were box office gold, pulling in massive profits even when the critics weren't impressed. But Snow White has become the cautionary tale haunting Hollywood. A clear example of what happens when a modernized retelling alienates the very fans it hopes to win over. Disney's decision to pull the plug shows they're not even willing to gamble on potential blockbusters if there's any sign of trouble. And at the heart of this storm, Rachel Zegler. She became the face of the backlash. Fans already wary of the reboot zeroed in on her interviews and defenses of the film, and they did not like what they heard. Then a wild rumor surfaced, claiming Zegler had a heated confrontation with critics and was briefly detained after an outburst. True or not, the rumor alone set the internet ablaze. Suddenly, it wasn't just the film getting dragged. People began speculating that chaos behind the scenes had spilled into real life. The drama leaped off the screen and into everyday headlines. And in today's relentless social media environment, where every controversy spreads in seconds, things snowballed fast. Twitter blew up, TikTok flooded with takedown videos, and YouTubers posted lengthy rants dissecting every questionable decision in the film. This wasn't just bad publicity, it was an all-out digital meltdown. Fans weren't just irritated with Snow White, they were left bewildered and frustrated. One of the loudest complaints? That the story had been cast aside in favor of heavy-handed messaging. Audiences accused the movie of abandoning the magic of the original just to tick off modern checkboxes. In the past, Disney might have dismissed criticism as the noise of a vocal minority, but this time it was everywhere. And those early test screenings? They only confirmed the worst fears. Insiders revealed the film started off with promise, but quickly unraveled. Viewers described clunky transitions, awkward tonal shifts, and an overall vibe that felt completely off. Word spread fast about last-minute changes and frantic reshoots, making it clear the production was desperately trying to salvage a sinking ship.
A company like Disney so up against it. Why? Because it doubled down on DEI. And I think Snow White has become the pinnacle of this. This is going to go down in history as an asterisk next to Rachel Zegler's name, Rachel Zegler.
What started as a cherished fairy tale ended up as what many described as a chaotic mashup of underdeveloped ideas, desperately trying to cater to too many audiences at once. By the time the final cut was released, it didn't even feel like a finished Disney production. Even the most dedicated Disney fans, those who usually defend the studio no matter what, walked away disappointed. Supporters who had previously championed remakes like The Little Mermaid and Cinderella admitted that Snow White was beyond saving. With its uneven pacing and what many felt was an overbearing emphasis on messaging, the film quickly began to alienate its core audience. That's when things truly unraveled. The loyal Disney crowd, typically the company's most reliable defenders, started to post harsh critiques. Once those critical opinions caught fire online, the atmosphere around the movie shifted dramatically. Word of mouth soured fast, and along with it came serious concerns that the film was headed for a major flop. Industry insiders began forecasting a grim future, warning that if the general release mirrored the reactions from early screenings, Disney was staring down a huge financial disaster, both in terms of box office losses and damage to their brand reputation. Then came the unexpected blow. Even people who almost never criticized Disney openly were brutally honest this time. That moment marked a turning point. It became clear this wasn't just another internet controversy. It was a full-blown crisis, forcing Disney's top brass to step in and rethink their entire strategy. That's how the drastic decision came about. No more live-action remakes, at least for the foreseeable future. But let's be real. The problem went way deeper than sloppy editing or weak plot lines. Fans were completely divided. Some condemned the film for rewriting a beloved classic with what they saw as unnecessary changes. Others argued that Disney overloaded it with modern themes, draining away the charm that had made Snow White timeless. And then came another twist. A portion of the audience felt the film didn't go far enough in its updates, leaving it awkwardly stuck in the middle, trying to satisfy everyone but ending up pleasing no one. What followed was a firestorm of conflicting opinions, with no clear side walking away content. Some viewers insisted that if Disney had just concentrated on telling a compelling, straightforward story, all the noise around it wouldn't have mattered. But that opportunity slipped away fast. Then Rachel Zegler's reactions added fuel to the already raging fire. She defended the film passionately, claiming critics were missing the point. But each time she spoke, it seemed to intensify the frustration among fans, many of whom felt she was dismissing their legitimate concerns. As the backlash grew, rumors about her having a breakdown and even being temporarily held back from public appearances spread like wildfire, especially among those already upset by her combative responses. Disney tried to weather the storm, praising Zegler for standing by the movie's vision, but the damage was irreversible. That meltdown narrative stuck hard, and no official statements from either Disney or her representatives could stop it from spiraling. Suddenly, Snow White wasn't just a polarizing remake, it was being declared a complete catastrophe. Even CEO Bob Iger stepped in, attempting to explain the creative decisions behind the film, but his words barely made an impact. Meanwhile, Greta Gerwig, who many had hoped would bring her unique spark to the project, remained publicly silent. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered about her deep frustration over how everything fell apart. Observers began noticing an unsettling pattern. Disney had once dismissed critics as mere online trolls, but this time, it wasn't just random negativity. It was coming from their most loyal followers. That flipped the narrative entirely, and amid all the chaos, a bigger fear emerged. Was Disney's magic touch for live-action remakes finally wearing thin? After a string of underwhelming adaptations, even longtime fans started questioning whether Disney's formula had run its course. Still, few saw this coming. Not even the most skeptical critics predicted such a dramatic fallout. Some doubters had joked that Disney would just quietly let Snow White fade into obscurity, but no one expected an official announcement halting all upcoming live-action projects. When the news broke, it hit like a thunderclap, loud, fast, and impossible to ignore. It was Disney waving the white flag, admitting that pushing ahead risked far too much damage to their legacy. Throughout Disney's storied history, pulling the plug this decisively has been rare. Sure, hits like The Jungle Book and Maleficent had proven that reimagined classics could succeed, but after pouring so much into Snow White only to face relentless backlash, Disney's leadership decided the gamble wasn't worth it. The potential profits couldn't outweigh the brand erosion. Reports revealed that several live-action projects, some already deep into development, were suddenly shelved. Teams who had been working on the next wave of remakes found themselves scrambling for new directions. For a company that spent decades profiting from reinventing its own catalog, this was a seismic shift. But perhaps the biggest takeaway was the undeniable influence of today's audiences. Once dismissed as background chatter, social media and fan communities now wield studio-shaking power. When even Disney's faithful start venting frustration and threatening boycotts, it's no longer just a PR problem, it's a full-scale loyalty crisis. Audiences aren't blindly embracing every remake just because it carries the Disney name anymore, especially when it feels like the heart of the original story has been lost. And here's the twist. This entire debacle might have been avoidable. Critics argued that if Disney had just handled the adaptation with more care, blending modern themes organically rather than forcing them, the outcome could have been very different. Instead, what audiences got felt like a jarring clash of two competing visions. The classic magic of old Disney battling with heavy-handed modern updates without any real harmony. That creative disconnect exposed what many now see as a major misstep, and the fallout is clear. Disney stepping away from live-action remakes, at least for now. Some insiders believe this signals a deeper transformation, maybe even a pivot toward fresh, original storytelling rather than mining the past. Others think Disney will lay low until the backlash cools off, then return with a safer approach. But for the moment, one thing is undeniable. Live-action reboots are off the table. No matter the good intentions behind Snow White, they've been completely buried by the storm it left behind. Even though a few voices praised its visual beauty, impressive sets, or certain performances, those small victories were drowned out by a tidal wave of criticism. For most fans, the movie simply lacked that effortless Disney magic they had come to expect.
I don't really care about that. What I care about is how she hated the story because it needed to be wokeified, and she hated the fact that there was going to be a Prince Charming of some sort, and they needed to update it. And then what do you know? They try all this updating. They get this lousy screenwriter, in my estimation, because I saw this thing and it was awful, like really, really, really bad.
With so much negativity swirling around, even a film that looked promising on the outside didn't stand a chance if the story underneath felt awkward or forced. Rachel Zegler kept defending the movie, claiming critics were simply misreading it. But rather than easing tensions, her responses seemed to pour fuel on the fire. Many fans took her remarks as brushing off their genuine concerns, as if their reactions didn't matter. And that's when things really began to fall apart. One thing is clear: attacking critics rarely pays off. If anything, it only escalates the situation. And if the rumors of Zegler's on-set meltdown are true, it only added weight to the idea that she wasn't trying to connect. She was gearing up for a fight. That attitude left a lot of people feeling like their voices were being completely ignored. From Disney's perspective, the message couldn't be louder. Moving forward with live-action remakes now feels like walking through a minefield. Studio execs are likely losing sleep over the possibility that any new reboot might spark another backlash, especially if fans sense the classics are being tampered with in a way that feels artificial or disingenuous. These days, a blockbuster isn't just about box office numbers. It's about surviving the online storm. One misstep, and the whole project can go up in flames overnight. Disney now faces a tough new reality. Original content might be the safer play. No old controversies, no sky-high expectations, just fresh, creative ground to explore. Still, this Snow White disaster has left many talented creatives in limbo. Writers, directors, and actors who had been pouring energy into the next wave of remakes are now wondering if their work will ever see daylight. And what about the stars already cast in future adaptations? Are those projects dead, or will Disney repurpose them into brand new roles? No one knows for sure yet. What is certain is that fans who were excited about bold reinterpretations now feel let down. Some are even mourning the fact that these remakes, if handled with care, could have breathed thrilling new life into beloved stories. But not everyone is upset about the curtain closing on Disney's live-action era. Some fans are downright relieved. Their argument? If Disney can't find the right balance between respecting the originals and offering something new, maybe it's better to leave the classics untouched. These passionate debates highlight just how deeply Disney's legacy resonates with people. Generations grew up with these animated treasures, so any attempt to modernize them was always going to be risky. Cultural commentators say, Disney's very public retreat reveals a harsh truth. Nostalgia alone doesn't cut it anymore. Today's audiences are savvier, more critical, and far less tolerant of what feels like corporate pandering. With indie films, viral hits, and streaming content everywhere, even a giant like Disney can't afford to alienate large portions of its fan base. We're in a new era now, one where studios have to delicately balance honoring their past while speaking to the present. Snow White aimed to do both, but missed the target completely. Industry insiders are calling this situation a textbook example of what not to do when reviving a classic. A few thoughtful updates? Great. But once you alienate the fans who cherish the originals, it's game over. Worse still, the chaos behind the scenes made things even messier. The project faced rewrites, reshoots, and countless test screenings, all telltale signs of trouble. Every attempt to clean up the narrative or spin the situation only made the problems more obvious. Without a clear, united vision, the final product felt like a jumbled patchwork that satisfied no one. Disney's efforts to downplay the backlash didn't help either. Hinting that real fans would understand only made critics louder. Loyal Disney followers, usually the studio's most dedicated defenders, started posting deep-dive critiques explaining their disappointment. At that point, it wasn't just random negativity. The criticism was real and it hit hard. Now, Disney's next move could shape its future. Some think this could open the door to more daring original stories, fresh ideas free from the baggage of well-known plots. Others believe the company will play it safer, leaning into sequels and spin-offs instead of full-on reboots. Whatever path they choose, the Snow White debacle stands as a symbol, a major turning point in Disney's modern journey. Analysts and industry watchers will be dissecting this for years because it proves one undeniable fact. Not even Disney is immune to failure when fans feel ignored and nostalgia is mishandled. This isn't just another Hollywood scandal, it's a wake-up call. If a powerhouse like Disney, armed with legendary tales and massive budgets, can crash this hard, maybe the era of safe, nostalgia-fueled blockbusters is winding down. Sure, Disney has confirmed that the live-action remake machine has come to a halt, but the big question remains, is it permanent? In entertainment, nothing stays frozen forever. A new CEO, a change in strategy, or a surge of public demand could easily resurrect these remakes. But for now, Disney's position couldn't be clearer. Full stop. No more reboots. They've been forced to step back and seriously rethink how they approach storytelling in this fast-changing world.
And there was no tension, there was no drama, there was like nothing in that set. All it was an empty movie that was done.
Beneath all the polished PR efforts, the deeper issues were impossible to hide. Tangled scripts, mixed messaging, and too many creative hands pulling in different directions. All that behind-the-scenes chaos buried whatever chance Snow White might have had to succeed. And the fallout isn't just haunting the studio, it's trailing every person who poured their heart into the project. Greta Gerwig, once hailed as the visionary who would elevate Disney's remakes, now finds her name tied to a production that many fans believe collapsed under its own weight. Then there's Rachel Zegler, who found herself caught right in the middle of the firestorm. Adored by some, criticized harshly by others, she's become one of the most divisive figures in this entire controversy. Industry watchers are already stacking this situation next to other massive studio reversals, but this one feels like it cuts deeper. The scale, the legacy, the emotional investment of the fan base, it's all on another level. Disney isn't just shuffling release dates here, they're stepping away from a formula that shaped their identity for over 10 years. Whether you're cheering this move or cringing at the fallout, one thing's undeniable. Snow White shattered the mold, just not in the way Disney intended. This whole saga proves just how fast things can unravel in today's entertainment landscape. Fans hold serious influence now, and when the story or the marketing misfires, they're not afraid to speak up. They rally together, they push back, and they force change. We've all just witnessed that firsthand. If you've stuck with us this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this with your friends. We'd love to hear your take on Disney's biggest shakeup in years. Do you see this as a much-needed course correction, or do you think it was a huge missed chance? Stick around, we've got more on the way, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.